Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Golden Astrologer Podcast. Today is Monday, the 4th of March in the year 2024, and I'm Deb McBride, broadcasting from a lovely, sunny, bright, blue Monday morning in Escazú, Costa Rica. And I apologize for the lateness of this podcast as I was out the entire day yesterday, the entire day. So I went out, not that you care, but I went out yesterday morning at 10 a.m. to the coffee fair. And if you know anything about Costa Rica, coffee's a big deal here, right? So this is an annual fair where the coffee brands come, and they're mostly the small brands, and they come and, they're there if you're a cafe owner and you want to try their coffee. They're there if you're a consumer and you want to buy some coffee for yourself, or you want to find out about certain coffees. It's a coffee connoisseur kind of experience because you're tasting it and you are determining whether this is the coffee you want to sell. Like, oh, it's got a smooth aftertaste, or it's got a little sharp aftertaste. And, I've become quite the coffee taster since I've been here. And while no means do I drink coffee every single day, but my friend Monica had a cafe here. She opened in 2018 up until the pandemic started, and she got her coffee examined by a guy that owns a coffee lab here. And I got to go to the lab with her, and we did a coffee tasting. We didn't know which one. It was a blind tasting, and they're standing there in lab coats, and they've got this whole plate of coffee, like table full of coffees, and you're tasting them, and they might tell you where it's from, or they basically don't tell you a whole lot about the coffee, and then you decide. Well, I was able to pick out the ones that were not good, and I was also able to pick out the ones that have a honey. There's a honey roast, and because it brings out the honey tones of the coffee. So I was very proud of myself. Anyway, so we went yesterday, and the coffee that I buy, and that most of us that where I live buy, is this coffee from the lab, and it's this guy named Donnie, and he used to live in New York actually, but he's from here, and his lab does all these tests for various coffees and things, and they roast, and it was so nice to see him there, and his coffee is really, really good. And when I tasted his, a comparison to other coffees, his really has a smooth ending on your tongue. There wasn't that acid taste afterwards. And it makes a difference. It makes a difference. Once you taste a few, you get to know. But anyway, that was part of the day, and then we went out to lunch, and then I went to a cacao ceremony last evening with my mentor and her husband, Yerlin and Kenneth, and it was really lovely, and it was a sound bath, and it was really, really beautiful. So that was a nice, calming part to the day after tasting all sorts of coffee early in the morning. Well, it wasn't that early, but it was early enough for me. So yeah, I was out all day, and I got home like shortly before 9 last night after going out at 10. So I wasn't going to do the podcast last night. So thank you for your patience. Yesterday was a Venus square Uranus day, because Venus is in Aquarius and Uranus is in Taurus. And we are in the phase where Venus is starting to wind down her trip through Aquarius for this year. And she really, really was high and excitable yesterday. So with all of that energy, I can say that I certainly used the Venus-Uranus very appropriately. It was just new things, trying new things, going new places, seeing lots of people, connection. And that was part of yesterday. So it was actually really very good. So that's how I used Venus and Uranus. And how did you use Venus and Uranus? Today we have Mercury sextiling Uranus. And that doesn't happen till 3:24 p.m. this afternoon. And it is a very soft aspect, because the Venus-Uranus yesterday was hard. It was a square, it was a challenge. And this is a very smooth, simple, kind of nice relationship between Mercury and Uranus. Now, those are high energy planets, so a sextile helps smooth it out and round out the edges and give us a little space to process information and to connect to our brilliance, genius, innovative selves. So, what can you do that is creative? Between yesterday's Venus square and today's Mercury sextile, what can we do with this energy? We can make some really creative choices and take some creative steps and do something a little out of the ordinary, shake things up. I'm shaking things up by doing this podcast on a sunny Monday morning. This is not normally how I start Monday, obviously, but you have to go with the flow sometimes, and I had to do what I needed to do. But the thing is that when we're dealing with Mercury sextiling Uranus, we ponder things, we get creative in an interesting way, we have refreshing ideas, we freshen up our routine, because Mercury can rule routines too. I mean, I think Virgo and Gemini are really routine-oriented signs, and Mercury rules both of them. So this is how can you shake up your routine a little bit? Well, we're doing this on Monday. So it's a smooth process of Mercury and Uranus, and how we can start maybe thinking of things in a different light, thinking outside the box a little bit, but in an easy way, not in a I'm struggling to think outside the box way. We're doing this in a more subtle way and in a very smooth, gentle, flowing way. That's what sextiles are. They're flowing. The moon is still in Sagittarius and will go into Capricorn. It's going to go void at 10:41 a.m. today in the sign of Sagittarius, and that's Eastern time. And then it will go into Capricorn at 4:15 p.m. So this is interesting because it's really a lot of this void moon day. There's a good section of time where it's void. The moon is void. And remember that long void last week? Well, remember how I said it didn't jive because of it was very long. It was like a 32-hour void moon. That was between Tuesday and Wednesday. And remember that there was that whole cazimi Saturn, Mercury, Sun last Wednesday. At the same time, the moon was going to be void, which was interesting because I found, for me, all the activity and the stress was Monday and Tuesday. And then when we got to Wednesday, after we got to the afternoon of Tuesday and into Wednesday, it was quieter. I, of course, though, got a Venus trigger from that whole cazimi. But I found that it really did feel like a void moon, even though the moon was making they're major aspects, but they're not considered Ptolemaic aspects. And the Ptolemaic aspects are what they consider in a void moon. So there were aspects that the inconjunct that I talk about, which is that needling aspect I remind you of. And the moon was doing that with Neptune and stuff because it was in Libra, and it was in a place of touching those outer planets like that. But I found it interesting because it still felt void. It just felt void. And nothing I did really came to any fruition. It was just maintaining things in business as usual. And after that, when we got into Thursday, because it was already nighttime, later at night, when we're getting ready to wind down the day, when the moon went out of void and into Scorpio. So it was definitely a more slower, quieter time on Wednesday, I felt, and then later on Tuesday. So despite my objections to it truly being a void moon, it was a void moon. It felt like I knew I had to get into it and feel it before I could actually report back to you about whether or not that 32 hours of void was really a void. I don't think I've ever seen a 32-hour void, or if I have, it was a long, long time ago, and I don't remember it. But this was an interesting day, and it was just not a day to get things done, even though it was so much about Saturn. I felt like the Saturn portion of things and the lessons came Monday and Tuesday. Onward. We are now at Monday the 4th. So February is over, March is here, and the moon goes into Capricorn today. And then what we're working up to here is we're working up to another one of those moon conjunct Plutos, which is going to happen on Wednesday because the moon will go into Aquarius. And, a couple hours later, it'll go into Aquarius 7:38 p.m. on Wednesday, the 6th, and then go to Pluto. And so we're getting revved up here because we're still in Pisces season. And as the moon is moving through the last signs of the zodiac, it is going to go to a new moon on Sunday the 10th. So we're going to have that conjunction with Pluto on Wednesday, and we're going to move through Aquarius and then into Pisces. And the moon is going to eventually meet the sun on the 10th. Now, where we are right now, I'm going to give you a little lunar Farmer's Almanac lesson, and I may have said this before. We are in a place of where we're at the midpoint of the full moon, which happened a week ago, a little over a week ago. It was, that full moon was on Saturday the 24th, okay? So we are now in the midpoint of the full moon and the new moon, where it's like the moon is now waning because it's going to disappear in the sky and become new, right? Well, this is called meguante in Spanish. And we look for meguante here because it's a good time to clip the plants. So it's a good time to do the gardening, any sort of clipping back of things, anything you need to do with your plants that you have, if you have plants, if you have a garden. This is a really good time to do that. It's when the plants will benefit strongly from when you clip them back. So you may clip back your plants and then they're really happy. And like our mango tree out here, they clipped it. I don't know when they clipped it. I think it was last year. They chopped it back quite a bit. I've never seen this tree so full of mangoes. They are incredible, incredible mangoes. And they are just everywhere. I should really post a picture of them because they are phenomenal. Maybe I'll do that later today. Take a look at my Instagram, The Golden Astrologer, because you're going to see a mango picture on my stories. It's pretty unbelievable. There's so many mangoes, and they're all green right now. And they are, there's different types of mangoes, obviously. And so this was probably clipped during a meguante. I went to an orchid show on Friday, and I met a gentleman who handles like organic products, and he was explaining how to clip your plant and then put this wound salve on the plant. It's a turquoise color that he makes. He makes it, and it's all organic, and it helps keep the bacterias and the funguses away, but it's natural. So it's really good. To help the plant when you clip it back. Like he was saying, roses are really good with this. When you clip the roses, and you have to clip roses because they get wild and they get crazy and they don't necessarily bloom. So you clip them and you put a little bit with this on, from your finger on the plant where you've clipped it. So this is gardening tips at the Golden Astrologer. So when you want to clip your plants, you want to go between the full moon and the new moon, not the new moon and the full moon, but when the week between the full moon and the new moon. And that's where we are right now. I think meguante was actually yesterday, but it's like a couple days on either side, right? Like any sort of lunation. So this is good. I guess it's the fourth quarter, but maybe it doesn't always work out that way. So yes. So now getting back to that new moon in Pisces. So the new moon in Pisces is going to happen at 20 degrees Pisces, which means that right now we're like 15 or so degrees Pisces because we are at the midpoint of Pisces season. And our sun is about 14 degrees Pisces. And by the time it gets to Sunday the 10th, it will be at 20 degrees Pisces, which means we have 10 days left in the sign of Pisces before we go into Aries, right? So this new moon I want to talk about because it's Sunday and it's 20 degrees Pisces, and the sun and the moon will meet at 20 degrees Pisces at 5 o'clock a.m. on the dot Eastern time. Now, that is also the day that daylight savings time begins. So no more winter time, no more standard time. Daylight savings time begins, in the United States anyway, at the wee hours of Sunday the 10th. Here, we don't do daylight savings time, so I will now be 2 hours behind Eastern time. Currently, I'm 1 hour behind Eastern time. So then we have 1 hour ahead of Pacific time here. So I don't move, everybody else moves, and my schedule adjusts accordingly. That's if you want to book a session with me, keep that in mind, where you are and where I am. My scheduler on my website, thegoldenastrologer.com, will accommodate your time zone and my time zone. So keep that in mind if you want to book a session. So here we are. We're going to have this new moon. This is a special new moon. It is a special new moon. It is at 20 degrees Pisces. It's not quite with Neptune. It is going to get to Neptune at 3:45 p.m. So the new moon happens at 5 a.m. and almost like 11 hours later, the moon comes to Neptune and ends its place in Pisces, goes void, and then goes into Aries at 8:19 p.m. And so what we're looking at with this new moon is we are opening the eclipse season. Yes, folks, an eclipse is coming. 2 eclipses, in fact. And in March, there will be one. There will be one in April. So let's start talking about that, because it's always very important to start talking about eclipses before they happen. So this is the beginning of the eclipse period. It is not the eclipse corridor. So eclipses will not happen as of Sunday the 10th. Only new moons will happen on Sunday the 10th, which swings open the door to the eclipse period. Now, if you'd like to learn more about eclipses, there is my eclipse masterclass that I gave last year in October, and you can go get that on my website, thegoldenastrologer.com. Click on book online, and it's among the things that are available for sale. Now, why would you buy that eclipse? Well, because it's similar to this eclipse. It's the sort of the mate to these eclipses. That eclipse season is the mate to these eclipses, this eclipse season, because of the nodes. And the nodes are what make eclipses eclipses. So and I talk all about the eclipse corridor on that masterclass, and I talk all about the difference between the experience of having the eclipse period open 2 weeks prior to eclipses and then close 2 weeks after eclipses, and then what's the eclipse corridor and what to do and what not to do in the eclipse corridor. So check out that masterclass. And this is Pisces, but the eclipse is going to be a full moon eclipse, okay? And it'll be 2 weeks later, and it will be on Monday the 25th. So Monday the 25th, there is a lunar eclipse. It's a full moon, of course, because lunar eclipses are always full moons, and it will be in Libra. This is where the South Node is, in Libra, right? So this is a South Node eclipse. And this is going to have quite a bit to do with relationships, because that's the nature of Libra. And when Libra experiences balance, they're very satisfied. They're always seeking balance. And it's hard. I mean, it's got to be hard to always want everything okay, because things are out of balance, like in a second. Like, okay, the wind blew. Now we're out of balance. Everything is neat and pristine, but the wind blew and now we're out of balance. Now there's more leaves coming into the garden, okay? It was pristine, now there are leaves. You know, nothing stays in balance for very long. We need to have like a balanced nervous system. We need to have balance in our mood. We need to have balance in our day, obviously. But Libra is always seeking balance and fairness, right? So the volume on balance and fairness may get turned up during that eclipse on the 25th of March, which is 3 weeks from today. And that experience is always about, you know, trying to achieve balance in an unbalanced life or an unbalanced world. And so, you know, eclipses always turn up the volume on emotions. Now, the sun will be in Aries. So there's a little combativeness to this, but the sun is going to be where the north node is, and the south node is where Libra is, right? And so wherever the moon lands during the eclipse is whether it's a south node eclipse or a north node eclipse. Because the moon is in Libra and the south node is in Libra, then we are having a south node eclipse. It is not entirely close to the node. This is very early Libra, 5 degrees. And that experience is not like the nodes will be in the mid part of Libra, like 15 degrees. However, when we get over to the eclipse after this, which is going to be April 8th, that's the strong one. So this is a little eclipse primer for this eclipse season. This is, we're getting into Aries, and I'll talk more about these as we get closer, but it's very intense, that eclipse, okay? That's a solar eclipse. I think it's a total eclipse, and it is on the exaltation point of the sun. So the sun, as we know, rules Leo, but it gives us the strength in Aries. So it's one of the strongest places in the zodiac for the sun. So the sun is in that fiery, sunny place at 19 degrees Aries. That is the exaltation point of the sun. And that's where the eclipse is going to be. So this is a solar eclipse on April 8th. And so that's the powerful one. So Aries, fiery, hot-headed, impatient, insistent, let's just do it. Instant gratification. So that's part of Aries, but we're not getting there till April, and it's more than a month away, so we're just not going to worry about it right now. But I can already feel the energy getting revved up. And once the eclipse season opens next Sunday, when the new moon occurs, then we are going to start feeling the energy getting revved up. And it's exciting, and it is also emotional. So, as I have told you many times on this podcast, eclipses bring emotions to the table. And it is really a powerfully emotional time. So, what do? We keep our emotions in check. We watch our experience of other people, especially with the first eclipse in Libra. We must watch how we are relating to others, the back and forth, the conversation, the things we say, how people can get triggered, how we get triggered, because it's an interactive eclipse. Because, first of all, it's a lunar eclipse. And lunar is always I and you, the sun and the moon, opposite. Okay? They're the people at the opposite ends of the table looking at each other. When you are in the experience of an opposition eclipse, like a lunar eclipse, and you are getting things like Aries and Libra, which is I and us, me and us, and me and you, then you have to watch the dynamics in your personal relationships. And it could be in your work relationships, your colleagues. It's you and the other person, but you have to own and take responsibility for your part in the dynamic. And your part in the dynamic is really what is going to be revealed to you through other people in that eclipse. Because once we get to April and we have everything in Aries, it's going to be about me, I. It's going to be I this and I that. And it's going to be about your own needs and your own self. And it's going to be, that's not necessarily selfish, but enough to know that you have to consider other things outside of your own soul opinion, right? And that is a very Aryan thing, very Aries thing, to be not looking at the needs of others or the opinions of others or the desires of others. It's all about you. And everybody gets like that every now and again. The word narcissism is thrown around way too much now. There are other ways to describe things that may not necessarily be narcissistic, but it's when we all have a little narcissism. So we have to own our own narcissism. We can't point somebody and say they're a narcissist without, everybody has a teeny weeny bit of that. It's just, we have it as babies. We have no choice as babies, because people have to take care of us. We can't take care of ourselves, and we need everyone to meet our needs because we're infants, right? We're not capable of getting up and getting the milk out of the refrigerator. So, babies are naturally needy, and naturally it's about them, right? So this is something that we need to watch. The dynamics of the relationships. This isn't a Virgo Pisces eclipse. That's not going to come for a little while yet, okay? Next year and a half or something. We're not getting there yet. And that's because the nodes are placed in the North Node in Aries and the South Node in Libra. The other thing is people pleasing. The South Node in Libra goes out of their way to make harmony and to make balance and to make people happy. And sometimes you go out of your way to do that and it doesn't work. Okay, so if it's not going to work, then you have to take care of your own needs first. And that's where, this is very important, that's where the thin line comes between taking care of your needs and being selfish. You have to know where you're doing that. And so the North Node in Aries is always going to say, you got to take care of you before if you're making yourself sick, taking care of other people's needs, then you're you're people pleasing and you're doing the wrong thing. And you think that you're going to be liked or be appreciated or be more loved if you take care of everybody else first, but that's not necessarily the right thing to do. You have to make sure that you're in a healthy place emotionally, or else you're not going to be able to take care of anybody. So for example, or if you're physically not in a healthy place, you can't take care of your kids because you're physically in bed because you're sick, because you've made yourself sick, taking care of everybody else and putting their needs before yours. So this is where we have to be very aware. It doesn't mean we're selfish by taking care of our needs. We have to do it because then your cup is not full for anyone else. So this is what we're watching through these eclipses in this season, the I and the you and us. And when I took this masterclass with Melanie Ann Layer last week, which was phenomenal, she repeatedly says, this is her mantra: for me, for you, for us, we rise together. For me, for you, for us. So it can't all be for me. It can't all be for you. It has to be for us. But first you have to take care of your needs. Then you take care of other person's needs. And then it's together. For us, we rise together. And she said that many times. And she that's her perspective. That's how she does things. And I think she's a Sagittarius. She's not Aries, Libra. This is something very important that we all need to pay attention to. So you may hear me say that a lot through the eclipse season. And the other thing that's happening, there's other things happening this week other than the swinging open of the door. Yesterday, Venus squared Uranus, as I said, but Venus and Mars are still very close together in Aquarius. And then Saturday, the 9th of March, Mars will square Uranus. So that Mars is not long behind Venus, right? Mars is like trotting behind Venus on the running field, right? So Mars is going to square Uranus 5:55 p.m. on Saturday the 9th. This is a very important aspect because they are hot-headed. Okay? Here we are, hot-headedness. And with the door swinging open to the eclipses, I think there could be some heat. Be very, very careful because Mars in Aquarius thinks they're right and square Uranus thinks they're right. And, we have to let go of being right and correct. Okay? I'm right, you're wrong. Don't make other people wrong. Mars and Uranus are very, very hot together. Now, that's great if you're exercising and you're at the gym and you're working out and you're reaching to a new level of weightlifting and running on the treadmill or running in the neighborhood. If you're working out and you're using the energy that way, good. However, this makes people hot under the collar. It makes people drive crazy. I had people drive crazy on Saturday before Venus Uranus, so I'm thinking of ways to not get into a car next Saturday, okay? So, but it is 5:55 p.m. Eastern Time, right before Daylight Savings Time starts, and it is a very heated relationship. This doesn't happen. It happens maybe, once a year or something, twice a year. And because Mars takes 2 years to go around the zodiac. So Mars and Uranus, maybe it's not the square, it's the opposition, the conjunction. They are hot together. So eventually Mars will get to Uranus later this year in Taurus. And that Mars Uranus gets very, very heated and impetuous and impulsive and maybe a little nasty. And I don't think it's appropriate to lose your head at someone. You may get really hot under the collar. Go for a walk. Go for a swim. Go do your exercise. Don't get in the car in a rage. Watch out for rageful drivers. Road rage is very popular with this. And be very cautious of how you speak to people. Don't be abrupt. Don't be in a hurry. Don't be discourteous. Be loving and kind, and just know that this is an energy that we can use in other ways. It helps stretch ourselves, maybe physically a little bit, maybe emotionally it's like a little immature or maybe a lot immature, but it can give you the power to see yourself from a different vantage point, see what triggers you. You want to see what triggers you and what makes you, feel your wounds maybe a little stronger during that time. So just be aware. The sun will also be sextiling Uranus that day, and like 6 minutes later, the sun sextiles Uranus. So the sun is going to balance things a little bit. It's that nice, smooth, flowing aspect that we're seeing with Mercury today, Mercury and Uranus. So we're seeing the sun and Uranus speak to each other very nicely, and hopefully the sun will sort of mellow out that mood. But Mars and Uranus are traditionally very hot-headed, and be careful with other things like your knives in your kitchen tools. Be careful with them. Be careful that you're not trying to do things too fast. Be patient. And this is not a patient aspect. It's not. And we are short-fused. We are short-tempered. We are impatient. Please take your time and move very slowly. It's a great aspect for high awareness and high-level thinking and dexterity and talents and creativity to come out, okay? So use it for that, not stubbornness. Aquarius and Taurus are fixed signs. Don't use them for that, okay? Mercury and Neptune are going to conjunct on Friday the 8th. Use your intuition at all costs, all the time, always. That's very good. Our intuition is going to help guide us through all of this Mars-Uranus, opening of eclipse season. So things get a little hotter later in the week. But right now, enjoy this creativity that we have for ourselves. And in the meantime, if you'd like a session with me, you can connect with my Golden Astrologer website and go to book online, as I mentioned earlier, and you can book anything you'd like. You can also do expansion mentoring with me, which goes 3 months, 6 months, 12 months. I think it's best. 3 months is great. If you can only do 3 months at this time, that's great. It's better than not doing it. But I think that I've been with my mentor over 3 years, and she's truly amazing. And I've learned so much from her just working with her for the last 3 years. And it's been a very powerful experience. There were times when I thought I was going to leave after 6 months, and I'm like, no, why do I want to keep doing that? And then I realized the value of how it changes your life after doing it longer than, just for a short period of time, like 3 months. It has been truly profound, and I'm very grateful. So I want to give you the same experience. And if you are interested in that expansion mentoring, you can get in touch with me at the Golden Astrologer. You can either book it there, or you can write to me, deb@debmcbride.com, info@thegoldenastrologer.com. And also I'm on Instagram, The Golden Astrologer, and I am there with videos and information and stories. I have to post my stories. I haven't posted stories lately. I've got stories, and they're written, and they've just got to be tweaked and put up. But thank you so much for listening. Love to all of you. Gratitude, great gratitude on this Monday morning. Have a beautiful week, and I will see you on Sunday when we open the eclipse doors. Thank you for listening.